Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to talk about something you see and use every single day, the alphabet. But what if I told you there's a hidden power inside those letters? A power so immense that ancient thinkers believed it was, well, the source code of reality itself.
So, just think about this question for a second. What if the universe wasn't made of atoms, but of letters? I know, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? But this isn't some modern fantasy. Nope. This was a serious philosophical idea way back in the ancient world. People genuinely believed that letters, not atoms, were the real, fundamental building blocks of everything.
So we're going to dive deep into this idea, this myth of creation from letters. And what's so fascinating is that this wasn't just in one place. This concept kept popping up in a bunch of different ancient cultures, which kind of tells you that something much deeper was going on here. It wasn't just a single religious tradition.
You know, for the longest time, academics just figured this was a uniquely Jewish idea. And it kind of makes sense, right? It seems like a natural fit with the belief in the holiness of the Hebrew language. But the source material we're looking at today tells a totally different story. It argues for something much, much bigger, a structural way of thinking that goes way beyond any one culture.
And it gets even more interesting. Turns out, there wasn't just one version of this myth. Oh no, this belief was so widespread that we have at least 3 totally distinct traditions that emerged, each with its own unique blueprint for how you build a whole universe out of letters.
Okay, so this table right here, this is where it gets really juicy, because it shows you what the real debate was back then. See, they weren't arguing about if letters created the world. For them, that was a given. They took it as fact. The big argument was about which letters did the job. Was it the super powerful 2 to 4 letters of God's secret name? Or maybe the entire 22-letter Hebrew alphabet? Or was it the 24 letters from the Greek alphabet? So how do we know this connection was so deep and actually crossed different cultures? Well, the evidence comes from a place you probably wouldn't expect, a single powerful word from ancient Greek. And that word is stoichion. And this is just a brilliant clue. For the ancient Greeks, this one little word meant 2 completely different things at the same time. On one hand, it meant a fundamental physical element, like fire, water, earth. But on the other hand, it also meant an alphabetic letter. Just think about that. The building block of the cosmos and the building block of language were wrapped up in the exact same word. They were, literally, the same idea.
So the big question is, was this just a random coincidence, a linguistic fluke? Well, one scholar, Franz Dornsief, he basically argued, yeah, it's just a coincidence, and some mystics just ran with it. But there's a much deeper way to look at this. The other side argues it's absolutely not an accident. The word stoicheon shows the shared way of thinking, that both physical elements and letters were seen as the smallest, most basic, atomic parts of their own systems. They're both fundamental.
Okay, I get it. This might all sound like some really cool but, ancient, dusty mysticism. But what if there's a real psychological truth hiding in here? To really get why this idea had such a powerful grip on people, we actually need to jump way forward in time. We're going to look at it through a surprisingly modern lens.
So let's fast forward to the 20th century. We're going to bring in a French psychoanalyst named Jacques Lacan. And believe it or not, his work is going to shed a whole new and kind of startling light on these ancient myths.
Okay, so Lacan had this idea that our whole experience of reality is split into 3 parts, or registers, that are all tangled together. First, you've got the imaginary. That's the world of images, how things appear to us. Then, you've got the symbolic. This is the big one. It's the whole world of language, laws, social codes, basically everything that gives our world meaning. And then, there's the real. The real is the raw stuff underneath it all. It's the part of reality that you just can't put into words or symbols. It resists meaning.
Now here's where Lacan really flipped the script on how we think about language. Normally we think, okay, I have an idea of a tree in my head, and then I find the word tree to label it, right? The concept comes first. Lacan said, nope, it's the other way around. For him, the signifier, the word, the structure of language itself comes first. It's this grid of language that shapes our reality and even creates the concepts in the first place. The world of words builds our world of meaning.
And this is the perfect place to bring the letter back in, because for Lacan, the letter is special. It doesn't actually belong in that symbolic world of meaning. It's the raw material that comes before meaning. It's just a mark on a page, a thing. Think of the letter A. Before you assign it a sound or a meaning, it's just a shape. It's not a symbol for something else. It's the physical piece that lets the whole symbolic system even work. In Lacan's world, the letter belongs to the real.
All right, so now that we have this modern psychological tool, let's go back and finally solve that ancient mystery. Why on earth were these creation myths treated as so secret and even dangerous?
I mean, you look at all these ancient texts, rabbinic, Samaritan, you name it, and they have these explicit warnings. They tell people not to study the Ma'aseh Bereshit, the work of creation. This stuff wasn't just a secret, it was seen as genuinely dangerous knowledge. So the question is, why? What was so scary about it?
And this is where Lacan's theory gives us this incredible explanation. See, maybe the danger wasn't about God getting mad at you for learning a secret. Maybe the danger was psychological. The idea is that studying creation from letters was to risk running headfirst into the raw, meaningless foundation of reality, to come face to face with Lacan's real. Imagine looking at a letter and not seeing a symbol for a sound, but just seeing it as a raw, meaningless thing. That's a huge cognitive jolt. It's an experience that our minds, which are built on meaning and symbols, just can't handle.
So here's the bottom line. The ancient mystics, maybe they understood something really profound without having the modern language for it. They sensed that at the very foundation of our symbolic world, underneath all our meaning, lies the letter itself. A raw, real, and maybe even traumatic piece of existence that doesn't have an interpretation. To encounter it directly, well, that's like looking at the source code of reality. And that can be a shock to the system.
And this actually helps explain something else that's really weird. In these ancient texts, they often lump the study of creation in with other unspeakable things, like incest. And from this perspective, it suddenly makes sense. Both things represent a kind of hole in our symbolic world, a traumatic spot where the normal rules of language, society, and meaning just completely fall apart. They're dangerous because they threaten the very framework we use to make sense of everything.
So, the next time you're just typing an email or reading a book, maybe pause for a second and just look at the letters themselves, just the shapes. Because, according to this ancient and weirdly modern way of thinking, you're not just using symbols to communicate. You're handling the fundamental, atomic, and maybe even powerful building blocks of reality itself. So what kind of power are you really holding in your hands?